Hi everyone. I think I was right in the middle of telling you how to identify a hard news article. So I'm going to go ahead and go over that with you. Um, so when we're looking at a hard news article, what we are looking for is a headline, an optional subheader, an image, which is also optional, although usually in a digital format, you're almost always going to find an image, which is not the case for print just because of cost and actual space. You may or may not have the location, which will be the dateline or the byline as well. You'll have the summary lead, which is the 5 W's and an H in 1 to 2 sentences, and you may or may not have a nut graph. And this depends on really the length of the article and its focus. And then you'll have the body, which is, goes along again in this sort of inverted pyramid style where you have, the key point, right, with the summary lead, and then secondary information in descending order of importance, and then less critical information. So that's the tail. So when we look at a hard news, and then we've got body, tail, less vital info. Okay, and we want to say every element counts, short paragraphs of sentences, inverted pyramid. These are the things that sort of identify a hard news article. So when we're looking at the hard news article, the format of the hard news article, let's take a look at this article, which was on the front of the New York Times under its Russia-Ukraine war section. And it's live, right? And so under live updates, you're gonna just necessarily likely have shorter pieces because you're getting those facts and that information delivered, and it's happening live. And so you, as a reporter, you're not necessarily gonna have a lot of time to write an article that's gonna be in depth, right? You're not gonna have done the reporting yet. You are just reporting literally the information. And so when we look at the front page of the Times, where we find this piece, let's find it here. India and China call for de-escalation after the missile strikes. We see it's important information, right? It's very close to the top, but it's a 1-minute read as opposed to a 3-minute read, or as we scroll down, a 7-minute read. This is also, new news. But this, and it's hard news, but this is going to be a much longer hard news article, feature article. I'm just going to keep throwing the word feature in there so that you're like, wait, what? What's a feature? So when we look at this 1-minute read, which is just going to be a short information fact article, we can scroll down and we see it's just a few paragraphs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs, one of which is basically a quote. We can see that it has a header, right, or a headline, which delivers the focus of the story to the reader concisely and with impact. And so the way in which this would be concisely and yet with impact is that instead of just saying India and China call for de-escalation in Ukraine, there's this addition of India and China, which have refrained from criticizing Russia, call for de-escalation. So the addition, even of that little phrase, adds in information that contextualizes, right, and conveys a sense of story. So something is happening that has changed, okay? Then we scroll down, there is no subheader here, right? And that's because this is pretty clear, right, what this is going to be reporting on. We do have an image of the war, and that also contextualizes, adds to sort of the real drama of the moment, right, the conflict. And that also, again, gives it some place in the caption. Always a credit, photo credit. Notice a photo credit, by the way, can be really simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. And then we have the date line. And really, this is all date line here. This is technically a byline. This is the date, this is the location, right? But if you see the AP, and you can do this on your own, you know, if you see the AP information, you know, it gives you a lot more about it and why date lines and bylines and credits and why they go in different areas and locations. I don't want to go into that right now because we don't have time, so you can read that on your own. But you can see that all of that information is here. And then sorry, this is annoying me. And then the location, right, is what starts off the story. This is in hard news. Not good. You're not going to find this in any of the things that you're working on because you are not delivering this kind of information. But in a hard news story, you will, because where the person is reporting from, or where the story is originating is going to be changing or maybe giving more context and transparency to the story itself. So here we see the summary lead, which is the first paragraph of a hard news release, 5 W's and an H, a terse synopsis of the main point. India and China, two powers that have offered Russia some relief in the face of Western sanctions, expressed concern after the deadly missile strikes across Ukraine on Monday and renewed calls for de-escalation and dialogue. I'm going to let you guys figure out what the 5 W's and an H is in that, but you can see it's all there. There's nothing unfolding in this story that that needs to be added on to, right? Rather, this is what happened, right? We know what it is. And then all of the other information that comes from that, the body, right? Oops. Is going to tell the story of the lead. It's going to incorporate and expand on all further relevant facts, okay? Including links to multimedia, quotes, and supportive information. We're not really going to find a nut graph in a 5 to 6 paragraph hard news article, okay? Because the information is already given. We know what this story is about, all right? So as we scroll down, we see a quote from China. We see a quote from India. We see some contextual information and some facts. And then finally we see some background in the tail, right? That's what this tail is. Wraps up the story neatly, may provide background information, may end with a quote to leave the reader with impact. And here we go. That's the quote that leaves the reader with impact, okay? So I'm going to just briefly show you this article, which is an 8-minute article. And I don't want to go too deeply into this because I want to show you an actual nut graph. But this is a hard news article, which is quite long. And I would call this a hard news article, feature article, because it is long, it gives a lot of information, but it's not really a profile. It's pretty fact-based. And so what you are looking at, though, and it's also under politics, which is under hard news, but what we're looking at here is a headline, right, that captures the reader's attention. So looking over here, captures the reader's attention and conveys a sense of story. We have the subheader, which gives a lot more information because this is a big story, right? We then have an image, and we have a caption that actually gives the name of the sort of main character in this piece. And then we move into this summary lead. 4 years after the massacre at a Pittsburgh synagogue, believed to be the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in American history, Doug Mastriano, the Republican nominee for governor of Pennsylvania, has rattled a diverse swath of the state's Jewish community. alarming liberals with his remarks and far-right associations and giving pause to more conservative ones. So this is definitely what I'd call potentially a summary lead, but it's also a lead that has that needs more support. So I'm not going to do it now. I think maybe we'll do it in class, but I'm looking down and I'm going, okay, where's the nut graph here? And so this is something that I want us to do together. But this is a longer hard news piece, which would potentially incorporate a nut graph. Okay. Clearly I'm having a network issue, so I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, so when we're looking at a soft news article, the format looks very similar, but the difference is the delayed lead, okay, and the nut graph. And the focus is on story and storytelling. There are longer paragraphs and sentences, and there's more of a lengthy body diving into the story. So here I am in the health section. Sorry about that. I had to stop for a second. So we're in the health section, and I clicked on this article. And what we see here is a header and a subheader, right? These are serious subjects. But the subheader gives information that supports the header. We have an image, we have a caption with more information. We have a byline, we have a dateline. We don't have a location because it doesn't really matter where the reporter submits this story from. So in that sense, we are already starting to see that, this might be a soft news feature. And then we go ahead and we look at what the lead is, right? And we can read it. It seems like an impossible dream. A cancer vaccine that would protect healthy people at high risk of cancer. Any incipient malignant cells would be obliterated by the immune system. It would be no different from the way vaccines protect against infectious diseases. And so this is not given the who, what, when, where, why, how, right? It's giving information. It's talking about what the story is going to be about, but it's not telling us what the data is. It's not telling us, what the preliminary studies are. It's not telling us the name of the person. It's more of a descriptive lead. You could call it also, I would say it's more of a descriptive lead than scene setting, right? It's describing what the story is going to be about. And so it's going to take several paragraphs to lead the reader into the story, okay? And so when we look at the nut graph, okay, the nut graph is going to be the lead of the feature article, okay? It's going to be the paragraph long lead. And by that, I'm meaning that it's going to be summing up what the story is about, the kernel of the story, right? So this is the big difference between a summary lead and a delayed lead. The summary lead gives all the information in one paragraph right up front. And then the rest of the article supports that summary lead. Whereas a delayed lead is gonna take a few paragraphs to lead the reader down to the nut graph, which is the lead of the article, okay? And so as we scroll down and we read, however, unlike vaccines, it tells us more information. I would say that this could be, of course, such research is in its early days and vaccine efforts might fail, but animal data are encouraging, as are some preliminary studies in human patients, and researchers are brimming with newfound optimism. That could be the nut graph. This could be the nut graph. So I'm curious, and again, we'll talk about this a little bit more in class because I'm running up on another 15 minutes. But I think what I'd want you to do is take a look at some hard news and some soft news feature articles and look and see if you can tell the difference. Look for these different leads, and that is what you're really going to be looking for and how you're going to figure it out.